Prisha Agarwal, and I'm in conversation with Mylene Vandenberg. She's the Director of eSolutions at Kaiser. During her tenure at Kaiser, she has led many initiatives solving business problems using digital, online, and mobile technology. She's been awarded with accelerated leadership. That goes to say, she is a passionate and strategic leader. Thank you so much for coming here, Mylene.
Thanks, Prisha. Thanks for that intro. It's great.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to hear about your story. So let's just start off with, how is your quarantine time going? Like, how are you doing?
Not too bad. I'm kind of a combination introvert and extrovert, so I don't mind like alone time and quiet time. But I have to say I'm a lot lucky because I don't have small children around, so I don't have to do that double duty that so many people are having to do with kids that they can't really leave unattended, and that's way harder. I'm dealing with a dog and a cat who just want to play and lay around.
Okay.
So not too bad.
Yeah, me too. I'm an introvert as well, so this is kind of like normal for me. And I do go out, but like
yeah, I know. I do like to go out. I do like to see people in person, but I mean, all things considered, my husband and I are doing pretty well.
Yeah,
we have our health. That's really lucky.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I know that you have a personal and professional life. So I want to ask you, how do you balance your work life and your responsibilities?
Yeah, well, I've always been someone throughout I guess probably my whole life, even when I was in school, but also for sure in my professional life, that when I'm working and I'm kind of on the job, whether I'm in my home or in an office, I'm very focused, and I'm just sort of wired that way. I just get really focused on whatever's in front of me. I can also very quickly shift from one focus to the next. So I'm a bit of a driver, I guess, in that way. And, that I feel like that makes me pretty effective on the job. And then with that, it makes it a bit, I don't know, easier, but for me, it makes it easier to not take all of that home. Don't get me wrong, there's been projects, times, big deadlines where, I've had to take work home. I've had to do it, work a bit longer hours. But on balance, I really try to kind of stop when I'm done working. I will say, though, the other way that I'm wired is I do tend to think about things a lot. So it's a little harder to turn that off when I get home. Even when I'm already in my home during quarantine, just to make that cutoff. So I do tend to think a lot about all kinds of things around work, but in some way for me, it's good because I don't have a specific task on hand, at hand. And so I can just sort of free flow think about things and sometimes worry about things. But, for the most part, I do have a lot of personal interest. I really like to spend time with my husband. We like to just, kind of hang out. We also play music together. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which I do turn that switch off and then, kind of make sure I have time for my mental health, my physical health, my well-being. It's really a priority for me. I really do feel like, if you can do that most of the time, I think it makes you a better, more kind of effective person in your work world too, in all areas. But if you never take that break, I don't know. I've had to do it a couple of times in my work world where a project was just so all-consuming that for at least a short period of time, I was working kind of crazy hours, like, into the night, on the weekends. And, it was necessary for the project and it was fine. I didn't mind doing it. But wow, I just didn't feel like that was sustainable. And it didn't make me the happiest person, that's for sure. And, I think getting away and kind of having that time where you're either doing something physical or doing something creative or just even, doing nothing for a little bit, I think that really makes, at least I know for me, it makes me more creative when I am back on the job. My brain is a bit more able to think and handle things,
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I do. And I also just want to say, I feel like it's really important not to apologize for those things. You know, I just really think that making those kinds of things in your life a priority is not something to apologize for. It's something to embrace.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing that you do that.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to be happy, like, you know, have those things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about work now.
Okay. Do we have to? No.
Been in Kaiser for a really long time. So
Yeah.
what has made you choose to stay in Kaiser for that many years?
Yeah, it kind of has crept up on me. I honestly never thought I would be in one place, or, you know, well, not one job. I have been in more than one job at Kaiser. But I never thought I'd be in one place this long. It kind of surprised me as well. You know, I think, you know, Kaiser is a very large organization, and there's advantages and disadvantages to being in a really large organization. When I was in the earlier part of my career, I took advantage of that in the sense that it was pretty easy for me to move around the company and try different jobs. I mean, I kind of always tended to go for things that played to my strengths, and you know, yeah, were in line with what I know I can do, or what I thought I could do. But still, I about every year and a half or 2 years, I would get a little bored and restless, and I would look around, see what else is out there, talk to people, and make a change. And it would give me that challenge, and that I really need. I'm definitely someone who likes variety and likes challenge with that variety.
Mhm.
So it would give me that. And you know, it gets a little harder when you get, at least in a big organization, it gets a little harder as you get higher up. There's fewer jobs at that level, and you know, your background and area of specialty gets more focused, and it's a little harder to just sort of move around. But I am really, really glad I did that, and that's what kept me, because I just continue to have a change. You know, in my current role, I've pretty much moved through from kind of the entry level job up to the director. And I mean, yeah, it's been the same type of work, but there's been so many challenges and variety. And because it's business technology, so we're dealing with technology and platforms and products, those do tend to change pretty rapidly, actually. So that has really kept my interest, combined with being able to move up, because I kind of always am looking long term and thinking ahead of where could we go with this, and not even necessarily like where could I go with this, but where could we as a team, or where could we as an organization go? And I want to be in the position to make that decision. So the role that I have right now is something that I was consciously wanting to get into that situation where I could make those decisions. So all of those things have kept me longer than I would have thought. Yeah.
Never bored you, and you've like
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you're a leader, and you said you have important decisions to make. So what has been a really big obstacle in your like journey that you faced?
Well, I mean, I think like some, not many, not everyone, but some, I do sometimes, I can struggle with sort of the politics, you know. Sometimes politics, I mean, it's always there, it's necessary. You kind of have to bring people along, and there's a lot of different people in a large organization that you have to kind of be able to get kind of sell your story to, you know, get your message across to. But that can be hard. That can be really hard. And I don't know that I always fit the perfect mold of like the consummate politician in a corporate environment. It can be challenging. So, you know, I mean, it's not something I struggle with constantly, but every now and then it will come up. And really what I've learned for myself is I really have to find how to balance that culture of the organization against my own personality, you know, and how do I find that path forward? Because sometimes it's important to kind of stick to what I believe is the right thing to either say in the message, even if it's not necessarily going to be in my best favor. Like the message may not be the greatest, you know, sometimes you just have to be a truth teller, and how to do that in a way that kind of maintains integrity for everyone can be challenging. But you know, I've just kind of had to learn how to do that. I'm not sure I've always totally overcome this. This is an ongoing process, you know, and it ebbs and flows with how successful I can be at doing those things. There's personalities involved, so you can't control everything, but I think it's really it's okay. It's just part of the process, and I think I've had to learn for myself how to navigate that path. So I had another one that I was thinking about just in terms of obstacles, is that I don't know if you know that expression, but like tooting your own horn. It's kind of like, how do you sell yourself, you know, to others when you're within an organization? And I'm not the best at that. I feel like I'm very good at supporting my own team and really giving them notice to others. You know, that's important in an organization, is making sure they get seen and their work gets seen by others. I'm not always that good at doing it for myself. It's just not, it doesn't come easy to me. I'd rather talk about the team than I would like to talk about myself. So I've had to kind of learn how to do that. I would say I haven't quite overcome that one. It's still not the easiest, or it's not the most natural thing for me.
Yeah. I think that makes you like unique, you know? No, like in a serious way, who wants to be like boring and like everyone else? And I think the cool thing about everyone is, like you said, they have like their own personality.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like just makes them be a leader, but like in a unique way. So that's really cool. Who inspired you to be the way you are, and why?
Well, there's always inspiration in all kinds of places. But I was thinking about two people in particular. And so when I was in college as an undergrad, I had two different jobs. And one of them, I worked in a local pharmacy. And this local pharmacy is like an institution. It's probably still there. I was thinking I should look that up. It's probably still there. It had been there for years, and it had an actual soda fountain at a time when those were disappearing, and I don't even know if they exist anymore today. But so part of it was a pharmacy, part of it was a soda fountain, and you could actually sit at the counter and, like, you know, have a burger and a fries or a grilled cheese and a milkshake, and it was really lovely, actually, wonderful place to work. And I worked the cash register in the front. And, you know, people who went there, there was a lot of older people in the neighborhood, and they would come there, and they'd been coming there since they were young. So it was really amazing. All of that to say that the owner of the pharmacy, who was also the pharmacist, his name is George Stone, and he, you know, all these years, he still is someone I think about. And you know, sometimes we just have really busy days, nothing horribly challenging or hard, but just busy. You know, a lot of people coming in, a lot of orders. And at the end of the day, when we'd close up, he would come up to me and others, and he would give me an actual pat on the back. And he would say, "You did a great job. You deserve a pat on the back." And it was so genuine, so authentic, and so heartfelt. And it was so meaningful. And I've never forgotten just how that feels. And sometimes as a leader, you know, just some kind words that are heartfelt go a long way. You know, there's so much talked about and written about in terms of rewards and recognition, all of which are important. This kind of direct, you know, human to human, caring kind of connection, I think is just as important. So that's really meaningful. There is one other person who I've never met. This is someone from afar. And it's her name is Barbara Jordan, and I'm sure a lot of people know who she is. But I just find that, we've always been blown away by what Barbara Jordan was able to achieve in the South as a woman and as a person of color, and being in the Senate, being in the House of Representatives, and it's really truly inspiring. It kind of really says what's possible, right? Against all odds in some cases. And I have seen kind of older videos of her speaking, and oh my gosh, so powerful. Just kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it, just that power of her voice and her message. So very inspiring.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you remember these people really well, and like they have some really great qualities about them. So what is something that you want to be remembered as by the people that you interact with?
Yeah, I would say that, at the end of the day, I guess I really want people to think of me as being genuine, and I think I've probably used that word a few times. So probably important to me. Yeah, I do want to be seen as genuine. I consider myself kind of down to earth, so I hope that comes across. And I want to be seen as caring, and I also want to be seen as smart. It's a reality. So yeah, that's what I would want to be thought about as.
I mean, your title does indicate that you're smart.
Oh, well,
like,
don't get too hung up on titles. Not always, but yeah.
Titles. What is an accomplishment that you're proud of?
Well, I will stick to the work world, because I do have personal accomplishments, but I'm going to stick to the work world. So I guess two things. One is that the team that I've been with now for several years, and some of which they've been around for a while. I've been around kind of the longest, so I've in some way had a hand in hiring pretty much everyone, one way or another. But I just feel like we have a really great team, and there's a lot of connection and loyalty, even for people who've been there a long time and people who are newer. And there's a lot of I can say this because, again, this is the hard part of like tooting your own horn. I think I can say this because they've said this to me, that they feel like I really have their back. And I think that as a leader, that's super important, that your team knows that and feels that. So I'm really proud of that. The other thing I was thinking about is actually there's a project that we did. Gosh, it took us like a year and a half or so, maybe even a little bit longer. And this involved bringing in a new product, a vendor-hosted product. And that can be pretty challenging in general. And it is challenging in a large organization where there's a lot of hoops and hurdles to go through in order to bring anybody in, either a product, a vendor, anything like that. So, kind of like what we were talking about earlier in terms of getting people's attention, getting that message across, having to sell the story. We did all that, and sometimes it's hard. It's hard to get everyone's attention that you need to get their attention. So even though a number of people in terms of leaders did come along with that narrative, not everyone did, or it just wasn't important to them in the moment. But I really persevered because I just knew we had this vision. And when I saw the product, I was like, this is going to be a true game changer for Kaiser's market and member-facing staff. So primarily their sales teams. And so I just kind of kept at it. I was pretty persistent. And we did all the things we needed to do to bring it in the right way. And it's turned out to be truly that game changer that I thought it would be. And in particular, the times that we're in right now with all the shelter in place and, not being able to travel, which, salespeople do a lot of that in person connection. This particular product and platform has been a huge enabler for them to continue to do their job and to continue to sell for Kaiser. So it just sort of, like, the timing of it all, it just all really fell into place. And so I feel really proud of that work.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of hard work paying off.
Sticking to it, even when the times get a little tough or challenging. Yeah.
So you've accomplished so much, but how do you deal with failure?
Oh, well, you know, failure can come in all shapes and sizes. So, there can be colossal ones, hopefully not many of those. But also I think more frequently we all deal with maybe smaller ones or what might seem smaller. And sometimes they're person-to-person interactions, that don't go well. Or you accidentally hit send on an email too early. It's like, oops, that's not a huge failure, but they can feel that way. They can take on that kind of life of its own. And that, I will say, that happens to me. Sometimes it can take a life of its own. And I am someone who will stew and kind of overthink. Remember when I said when I come home, I'm still thinking about it. I will kind of stew on things for a while, and I'll replay the interactions or my actions in my head over and over, and I'll replay who said what or what I should have done, and this. It's honestly not the best strategy to go forth. I don't advise this, but it's the reality for me of what I do. So I know this about myself, and I know that after about a day or two, it will dissipate. It will settle down. It will lose its intensity, and I'll be able to get perspective. So this doesn't happen every time, don't get me wrong, but it does happen to me occasionally where I kind of have to go through that process and just be aware that it will dissipate, and probably best not to take any action until it does. And there's other times where I really had to kind of teach myself and in a bit of a strict way to let things go more quickly. I've actually seen this play out in sort of gender differences, and I don't mean like, oh, one gender does it better than another at all. Sometimes there's differences, and I've seen sometimes between women and men that I think some of the ways that we've been kind of acculturated, in our particular society is like we can be a little overly apologetic, me included, and I think kind of hang on to things. And sometimes I've seen men kind of go through a big or a small failure and just sort of move on. Now, I don't know what's going on in their heads. They may be replaying it just like I do. But I think there's a way in which there's a projection of, I'm going to move forward. We're all going to move on. Let's let it go. Let's, if there's something to be learned from it, great. If not, then move on. And I think that that's good. I think there's a place for that. Again, if there's lessons to be learned, then yeah, you should learn that lesson or think about it and ponder it. But, sometimes it's just kind of look at it from a different angle, or let it go and just move forward, and not let it get too much in the way.
Mm-hmm. Since you said that you stew over things, think about them.
I do.
So has there ever been a decision that you made that you actually want to go back and change?
Well, honestly, not many. I might have felt that in the moment, but certainly with perspective, I look back on so many things in my life, and I think, well, that ended up helping me or moving me in a direction I couldn't have foreseen. So to think of it as something I would change or possibly even regret, I really try not to do that much. I will say there is one, having said that, there is one thing where I do sometimes go back in my life and I think about, this is when I was 15, and I had been playing a musical instrument for several years, actually, because I started in the New York school system where they had started musical studies in the school at an earlier age, and then I moved around. So as I moved around, I kept playing, but it got to the point where when I was 15, I don't even know, I could guess why I stopped, but I stopped. And I do sometimes think back and I go, man, I wish I hadn't done that. If I could tell myself to keep going, I would have. I would have changed that decision. I did pick up playing musical instruments again as an adult, later on, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, there's times where I'm like, boy, I'd be a lot better if I just kept going when I was younger.
I know it's going a little off of what we're talking about, but I wanted to ask you, what instrument did you play at 15?
Oh, when I was young?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually ended up playing the clarinet.
Okay.
So I started on the recorder, which is pretty common, as kids to start that way. And I did take some other lessons. I took some piano lessons and guitar lessons. I didn't really stick to those so much, but I did play clarinet. I played privately, private lessons, and was thinking about playing competitively, like sight reading and all that. I didn't actually do it. And I played the school orchestra. So yeah, so clarinet was my instrument. I don't play that today. I don't even know if I could still play it. Today, I know you didn't ask me today, but today I play guitar, bass, learning the drums, which is a lot of fun. And I also sing.
Yay. Okay.
I know.
I feel like that's like that's the consistency of an entire band, like drums and
pretty much
singing. You can do it all. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I do actually play with others in a band. I mean, not like not professionally for sure. We play for fun. So yeah, I have done the band thing, and that's a lot of fun.
I need to hear you play.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, playing an instrument on your own, I mean, it has its own fun and everything, but there's something very different when you get with a band and you have to you do your part, but you also really have to pay attention to what everyone else is doing. And, the ultimate goal is to come together and produce something together, that sounds good, that's enjoyable, that's fun, so that's been great. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Would you say you're a leader in your band, or like what part?
Yes.
I mean, it kind of comes through in like all aspects of your life, I feel. Like,
it's true. I'm definitely an organizer. So I don't know if sometimes the organizer can kind of come across as the leader. But yeah, I'm definitely the person who's like, okay, it's about time that we decide which of these songs we're going to play for sure. And here's a suggested song order. What do you guys think? Let's try it out. We can change it. Like, I'm the one who will do those things.
You've had so many years of experience, personal and professional. So how have you evolved? How do you think you've evolved as a person?
Well, I haven't always taken the common path, I guess. When I was, when I was in my 20s, it was really super common for people in my age to go for their MBA. It was a big time of like everybody was getting their MBA. And I had thought about it, and then I didn't. I actually went and got a master's in counseling psychology. So I had a business undergrad, but I went for counseling psychology, which is really ultimately kind of the path for that is becoming a psychotherapist. And I did do some of that as an intern during graduate school, and also as an intern postgraduate school. I didn't keep going with it, obviously. That's not the path that I followed. I got into kind of other things, technology and things like that. But there was something about that path for me, and getting that degree, it really helped me. I didn't know that when I got into it, I didn't know I was going to take the path I took during that time in my life. But I really allowed that path to sort of unfold, and I followed it, which was about kind of becoming more present to myself, becoming more emotionally aware, and hopefully more emotionally mature. And I was certainly working at that time and all of that, and after graduate school, so I was earning a living, but I wasn't as focused on building my career. I was more exploring and allowing that process to happen. And I feel like having done that, it's made my life richer. It's made my relationships richer. And even though I'm not a psychotherapist, I do feel like all those things that I learned have helped me in my leadership role and helped me to kind of deal with various people and personalities and situations. So, I mean, in the end, it was all the right thing to do, even though it wasn't the most like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it for X number of years. And it wasn't quite like that. But yeah, I think that having done that, it like I said, it kind of made me a more present, engaged, and happy person. And that's super important at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah, you've really changed over the years, and like
Yeah.
for the better.
I hope so.
Yeah, I say so. So final question.
Yeah.
What's your advice for the next generation of leaders?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on leadership, but I'll stick to a couple of things. I think that, I mean, one thing is I've said this, I think, earlier in our conversation, that I think don't always get too hung up on titles, because I really know and believe that, leaders come in many forms, and you may not have the title, but that doesn't mean you can't lead. And I think it's wonderful when there's like people within teams that just sort of step up and go, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that lead. And it shows a great amount of initiative, and it shows those leadership qualities. So I just say, focus less on the title. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's good to have things to shoot for. It's good to be ambitious if that's what you want. I'm ambitious. If that's important, then yeah. And leaders can come in many shapes and sizes regardless of title. So I think that's really important. I also think that kind of along with the title is that, stay connected to what the people are doing who you're leading. And I know that I can imagine, I mean, it gets super hard when you get higher and higher up in an organization and your span of control expands. There can be so many people working underneath you. I'm not in that situation. I have a smaller team, but I see that, and it gets harder and harder to kind of keep track of what are all these people doing, like literally, day to day. What's challenging for them? What does their work look like? What are they dealing with? And I'm certainly not saying, that you should know all that in an excruciatingly detailed way. And I think that it's still important, no matter how high up you get, that you have a pretty good understanding of like, what are all these folks doing? What is important to them? What's hard for them? And, that way I think you can really be more of service as a leader, be more compassionate, and more understanding and more supportive of challenges, of people trying to do things, like trying to get noticed, trying to say, I've got this great idea. People have great ideas at all levels. So, I think the more connected you can be as a leader, the more you're going to have access to that. And my style is a bit more like kind of roll up the sleeves. I don't try to do my team's work. They wouldn't want me to. I don't want to micromanage people. Nobody likes that really. But I do think that when we're as a team or as individuals on the team, when they're faced with a challenge or a decision point or conflicting, opinions and information, I'll definitely sit down, and kind of the roll up the sleeves kind of way and say, all right, let's talk about it. Tell me what's going on. What, have we thought about this? And then kind of help sort through that and make some decisions if needed, or empower them to make a decision, and then get out of the way so that they can do what they need to do. So that's me. That's my style. It's not everyone's style, but that's just something that I don't know. I enjoy it, and I enjoy it when I get that from leadership too. So again, it's one choice of how to be, but I do think it speaks to that connection, and staying connected to the people who are doing the work. Because without them, well, you don't really have much going on if you don't have, the various teams doing the actual work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to think, because like I feel like this only doesn't just apply to, like leaders in the corporate industry. It also like applies to, I would say, a classroom, like a teacher. I feel like she's a leader. And I would say for myself in high school, if I have a teacher that's like ready to like lead all of us and talk to us, instead of just like giving us material, that's so much more helpful as just like the people who are trying to learn as well.
Yeah. You feel like you're in it together.
Yeah.
And I think it does speak kind of to one of the things I'd mentioned earlier, is that feeling of like, yeah, this person has my back. It doesn't mean that, okay, someone might make a mistake, make a decision that, sometimes decisions are made by my team and I'm like, I don't know that I would have done that, but you know what? There's not just one way, and it's interesting. Okay, let's go with it, but I think that feeling of, okay, this person has my back, I think that's part of what you're describing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really great. So thank you for that amazing advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had such a great time talking to you, as always.
Same here. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah. And I will talk to you after. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Yep. Thank you.
Great day. Bye.
You too. Bye.